Solubility is a physical property of matter. Solubility is the ability of a substance, called the solute, to dissolve when it's mixed with another substance, called the solvent. The solute and the solvent, when they are mixed together, will form a solution. Water is a material that is often used as a solvent. Many substances will dissolve in water. We're going to test 3 items to see if they have the physical property of solubility. The first item we're going to test is sugar that has been dyed blue. Let's see if sugar is soluble in water. What do you notice that happens when we add sugar to water? Well, this sugar has blue dye in it, and so we notice that the water starts to turn blue. That's because the water is dissolving the dye. The dye is soluble. Let's see what happens to the sugar. Sugar is also soluble in water. It will dissolve when put in water. Notice how the grains of sugar are becoming harder and harder to see. It is impossible to see the individual particles of dye in the water. The water just looks blue. And the particles of sugar are getting smaller and smaller, and it looks like they're disappearing. However, they're not disappearing. They are dissolving. They are getting smaller and smaller, and they are mixing evenly with the particles of dye and the particles of water. Let's take a look at salt. What happens to the salt when we mix it with water? Notice the particle size of the salt. Is the salt still easy to see? Can you see the individual particles mixed in with the water? Or is it difficult to find the salt in the water? Well, the particles of salt got smaller and smaller until they became so small you cannot see them with your eyes. The salt is still there, and the salt is still salt. The water is still there, and the water is still water. Neither one of the substances have changed what they are, but the salt has changed size. If you drank the water, it would taste salty from the salt. If you drank the blue water, it would taste sweet from the sugar, because the sugar is still there, even though you cannot see the individual grains. Neither one of the substances changed what they are, they just changed their particle size. Now let's look at pepper. What happens when we mix pepper with water? What do you notice about the particle size of the pepper when you mix it with the water? Does the particle size change? Is the pepper disappearing? Is it hard to find the pepper in the water? Or can you still pick out all the individual pepper grains? The pepper is not dissolving. Pepper is not soluble in water. The size of the pepper is not changing when mixed with water, and it is not mixing evenly. I can see little pepper flakes floating around, and I can see a bunch of pepper gathered in the bottom of the beaker. It doesn't matter how much I stir it, I will not be able to get the particles of pepper smaller just by mixing it in water. This is not a solution because I can easily see all the pepper with the water. The pepper did not dissolve. It is not soluble. The salt dissolved in water. It is soluble. The sugar and blue dye dissolved in water. They are soluble.